All right, welcome to another GM Tips. This is Rick M, the GM here. I hope you're having a great week. As you can see, I got D&D Beyond up. There is a reason for this, and let's do this. I'm going to open a character thing. So, what we're going to talk about tonight, and I thought this would be an interesting topic, and again, it's tonight for me, maybe not tonight for you when you view this, but we're going to take a look at how to create an NPC, a non-player character. The steps that are involved with that you can utilize to really help you create some very memorable, very three-dimensional, and very unique non-player characters for your campaigns as you go along. Now, some of you are using campaign material, so you may be using D&D type of campaigns or Pathfinder campaigns. Again, since I've done a lot with Pathfinder, I'm going to kind of go back to D&D for now. Now, I will do some Pathfinder 2e stuff going forward at some point. But for now, I'm going to focus a little more on Dungeons & Dragons just because it's fairly straightforward to do in the actual mechanics of creating one. I want to focus more on the real initial step brainstorming that goes on with creating non-player characters. So let's take a look at that tonight. So I'm going to hit a couple steps, and we'll go through them one at a time. It should only take us about, hopefully, 30 minutes of video. I'm trying to keep these between 30 and 40 minutes. So the first thing that comes along is you have to create your campaign or decide which material you already want to use that's been designed campaign-wise. Creating non-player characters and then throwing them into a campaign setting that makes no sense for them is at times and at best confusing to your players in your game. So please, before you even create these NPCs, you can create them without having a campaign totally set out yet. But at least pick where it's going to be. So this could be Greyhawk. This could be Eberron. This could be Strixhaven. It could be Theros. It could be Greyhawk. There are so many different D&D settings. It could be Planescape. There are so many settings that you could do this for, or even a homebrew, or something in between. But make sure when you're creating these non-player characters, they are designed for your campaign specifically. Now again, you may not want to create every single NPC or non-player character. I'm going to start using NPC as an abbreviation if you don't know it. Please don't try to do everyone as three-dimensional. And here's why. It will literally drain the life out of you if you do every single NPC in a town or a tavern to be somebody that your character or your players want to interact with. Have a couple key ones that are so unique that they draw your players to them. Perfect example, the other day, I am running a campaign in Eberron, and we have a player that is playing in it with a Aasimar Bard, or actually he's a Goliath. Kind of thought of an Aasimar, but he's a Goliath Bard. Kind of unique in Eberron because Goliaths aren't as common. Chad TC, which I'm going to do that because he called himself Thunder Groin, but not groin. Yeah, whole nother word. Don't know why, just his whole bro code type of thing. So Chad saw this non-player character. Now, how did I draw him to that particular non-player character? Well, because he was looking around the bar with some of the other characters after their main point of contact left. And they were looking for interesting people to interact with. So I caught their eye. I said that basically you get the feeling that someone's eyes are on you to one of the players. And they start going into, okay, I'm not going to let them know I know that their eyes are on me, but I'm going to nonchalantly do some signals, some hand signals that wouldn't mean anything to anybody to let them know that we're being watched. Beautiful thing. But I made this character, this gnome, so standoutish that Chad did an acrobatic maneuver to get his shield and end up sitting beside him and putting his arm around that NPC. So, all that said, if you do your NPCs right and you set them for the setting that they're supposed to be in, the players will find a way to interact with them. 9 times out of 10. 1 time out of 10, your party will purposely avoid any non-player character that you're pointing them in the direction of. So get used to that too. You're not always going to catch your party's eye, nor will you get their desire to want to come over and talk to somebody. In fact, in some campaigns, just be prepared for this, they will go for your least prepared non-player character. Nothing more annoying, but it's a reality, and it will happen to you at some point. Just have a little bit of notes on some of the other NPCs, at least enough that will give you a platform that you can build this NPC around. And then when you say things, have a pen and paper and a pad with that NPC's name that you're going to write on there when they choose them. And then just start putting down what you fill in the blank with as you go along for that character. So that way you don't forget it. Because your players won't. I guarantee you, they will never do that. They will remember every detail and you will forget because that's not the one they were supposed to be focusing on. So keep that in mind. All right, enough said. After you've got the setting, then you got to think about what races fit into that setting, but make the characters raise their eyebrow in noticing them. So let me give you some races that are not played a lot, that are interesting in my mind. You may love elves. You may love dwarves. You may love halflings. You may love humans. Most players don't. Or they see them as run-of-the-mill. So you're not going to get their attention by filling a town full of elves where their character's an elf and they're looking around. You might catch it for a short time, but it's not going to be something that stands out. So let me give you an example of a character that I did that will stand out. Now, this is really pretty cool, and I'm going to show you a picture that was done off of Twitter that I'm going to save on here that I want you to see. Again, I commission artists so that they will do the type of artwork that will catch the player's eye. So this is Senatani. She did an adjustment. Yay! All right, so this is Damaskine Flitterheart. And she is shaded now. All right, so I'm going to put her in original character art. This is a JPEG small file. This is Damaskine. Now take a look at her for a minute. Does this character scream, "Come talk to me"? They do, don't they? The eye's a little bit off. Why? Because she is wearing a Harlequin mask like the Phantom of the Opera did. I'll go in later and I'll use her as an example of how I'm drawing the characters to her. First thing, she's a fairy or a pixie, okay? That stands out in any campaign you're going to do. Does your world have the Fae? If it does, then utilize that, especially with all the new adventures coming out. This will scream, "Come talk to me." Why? What color is her skin? Light purple. Okay, a lot of fairies have different colors, but how many light purple fairies do you see? And oh, by the way, she has winter butterfly wings. I did that purposely in my description to the artist. And the type of clothing she wears screams summer court or autumn court. So now you have all kinds of dichotomies going on. And a dichotomy means different divergences going on with her. She's got a mask. She has a gem for an eye. She has winter pixie wings, and she's wearing summer court leathers. Does that scream to you, come talk to me? Yes, it does. So, when you design these things, keep that in mind. And so I'm going to keep her again in here as Damaskene Flitter Heart 1. All right, so that's Damaskene. I love it. Real quick, I'm going to say... All right, so far I'm going to let her know I love her, because she has really worked hard on this for me. But that said, let's not even go to the drawing. That's a finished result. So here's the concept I came up with when I thought of that world. I thought, what is something in a steampunk setting, like Eberron, that would scream unique? Well, not another steampunk character, right? Warforged, common. Halflings, common. Elves with tattoos, common. So many other races. The shapeshifters, common. Changelings, common. Maybe not as common, but common. Humans, common. Fae, wait a minute. When's the last time Eberron has even mentioned the world of the Fae? Never. But could it fit in the Eberron setting? So think about that. Remember, I went back to when you pick your setting, pick your NPC for the setting. Yes. Feywild exists in Eberron. It exists in Faerun. It exists in Greyhawk. It exists in Planeshift. It exists in almost every setting. It does for Wildmont. It fits into Wildmont big time. And that's a little more common, so there you may want to kind of limit that and go a different direction. But in Wildemont, or Wildmont, as I call it, it's Wildemont, it is very common. How about your pirate settings? Yeah, the Fae exists. The Water Fae, the Naiads, everything else. So I picked a race that would scream, come talk to me, but yet put my twist on it. It's something unique. It stands out. Now, I've got another campaign where these are more common, but because of what she is and that mask, that is what's going to draw those people, because I've met a few Fae in the other campaign. So I'm going to have her in 2 campaigns. Imagine that. Make up a good character, you can use them cross-campaign. Maybe change them a little bit. But they're still an iteration of that character. So that's the first thing. Pick your race. Then think about what is their story and why are they in this setting. So I thought a lot about that. And as you do that, the great part, so let's go through Damaskene, and I'm going to change, now I can finally change the thing here. Because I had an initial idea, right? Pick somebody's art on the internet and went with that idea. But let's not do that. Let's say, for instance, I want to go with something different. So I go up here to my cogwheel, and I'm going to change it. I hope, if the cogwheel lets me. Edit character, perfect. So I'm going to go back into Damaskene. I've already kind of got some things set up, but I want to do her race. And here I can, if it doesn't do this, go here and change my portrait. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to go down here to Damaskene Flitter Heart. And for right now, I'm just going to use this black and white, okay? Because I got to convert the file. So there's Damaskene. So I chose a race, remember? I said Fae, but wait a minute. Now I've thrown in another twist. I just didn't go with the Fae. I thought a little bit about the story. So here's what I thought. What would be a character, an NPC, that would stand out to my characters in a unique way. What if there was a Fae of the Autumn Court? And so first I picked the court, right? Because there's 4 courts in the Fae. The Unseelie and Seelie are the 2 main courts. So you do a little research on these things to know what court. I've already done a winter one with Amethyst. And so I said, she's another NPC in another winter campaign. I said, well, we're not going to go full on winter. Let's go fall under the Pumpkin King and pick a pixie that would have served him. And Damaskene is that pixie. She loved serving that court. Well, here's what happened. I had Damaskene's story, and I went in here, and let's see if I put it in here. Let's go over to the description. Did I put Damaskene's story? Hang on here. It does this sometimes. Boop, 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 boop. Let's go here. And let's look at her just notes. All right, so here's what I came up with. Damaskene used to serve the Unseelie court of Fall. She was born into a noble fairy family, so this is the first time I've picked a noble character in a while. And served the court of the Pumpkin King. She had a wicked sense of humor, and yet won't hurt those closest to her. So her wicked sense of humor was to people that she didn't know, but to those close to her, she held them dear. She never was particularly evil. That's the first thing I thought. She's maybe not good, but she's necessarily not evil either. She's just kind of random. But she often danced outside the edge of good. So she leaned towards good, but didn't quite enter it because of her wicked sense of humor. So she was on a mission, right? She went on a mission. What if Fae court creatures do? They go on missions for that court, for the Pumpkin King, to help expand the influence of the Fae court, the Fae court in Valinor. Valinor is a country in that realm of elves. So it makes sense, right? Ties into the story. Here's the things I'll say. When you're writing the story, you got to think in those lines. All right, what are the countries? Why would they be there? What are they doing? What took them there? But again, this is going to a direction, and this tells you my thinking in this. She was slain horrifically, and the accident took her right eye and the face area near it by an attack from a Dalekeer. Dalekeers are evil creatures that are on Eberron. This thing literally blasted her eye out and part of her face. Hence the Harlequin mask, right? She was deformed like the Phantom of the Opera was deformed. So she hid her face. But some else found her and reforged a copper area that replaced the bone. So literally under her mask, it's copper. Instead of bone and skin, the skin may have grown over it, but it's copper. Gives her some structure and strength to have an eye and rebuilt that. But she's still dead, right? She's dead. She has a burn scar there, but covers it with a partial Harlequin mask with a lime green lens that she can see from, or gem. I turned it to a gem. She was also given a tattoo that is a dragon sign with the sign of Ezra. If you know Ravenloft and Van Richten's, Ezra is the god of protection, maybe, in that realm. And the god themselves blessed, and I said he, her. So we got to get in here and go blessed her, reawakening. So this god literally blessed her to come back to life as a reborn. However, she also has the spirit of a fallen Eladrine from the Fall Court that is attached to her names, to her named. Boy, I'm really doing bad. You can tell this is why going back and editing this is always good. But this was my initial concept. named Melchinar. He whispers conspiracy in her ear. So, again, this was just a little fleshing out of it. I'm going to do more with her. But Damaskine is not just a fairy of the Winter Court. She has a story, and yet she's broken. She is a broken fairy. Reborn are broken. They were broken in life and slain the first time. But then they came back, kind of like Frankenstein's monster. They had an event that brought them back. But when they come back, they're never truly 100% whole. She's not either. And that's the whole reason I'm going to work with her. Does that bring characters to her? Oh, yeah. Ask yourself, if you walked into a bar and you ran into a pixie like this, that had a face mask like this, and was mumbling to herself, would you? Yeah, most people would. Because there's a story there. So, when you do your NPCs, do some thinking out about that. The great part about these sheets and why I'm showing you this is you can go through when you're creating your character and jump around in the sheets from either D&D Beyond or Roll20. Utilize that and do that because it's important that you do that. Now, let's go to the next step. That's important. So, a little bit of background, picking something that fits in, and then putting together a little bit of a fleshing of a story. Brainstorm on this. So, that was my story. But I will tell you this. Get a pencil and paper, write down multiple ideas, and see how they sound. If you got somebody that isn't playing in your game that you can go to and ask them about it. I love when other DMs come and go, Rick, I got something. Let me tell you about this. And I love it. See, for me, that draws me in. I'm going, ooh, yeah, I like it. Because then I can help them and maybe throw some ideas their way. And then all of a sudden, things start clicking in their mind. And then they can flesh out that character. Next, go with what will fit them. Damaskine was a scout, right? She was doing missions for the Winter Court. What classes fit a scout? Well, of course, a ranger. Ranger will always fit a scout. Maybe an artificer. Depends if they're a mad creator or not. The rogue. Now, the rogue makes a great envoy. Why? Because they have skills. They have so many skills. They got 4 skills they get to choose from. And depending on the background, you can take that up to 6. And, oh, by the way, 2 of those skills they're expert in if they don't take lockpicking. Well, okay, why would she take lockpicking? She's not trying to get into a house. She's a rogue that is a more deceptive, persuasive type. Not that she doesn't have lockpicking skill. It's just not her forte. Her forte is another thing. So, if you were to take a look, I'll take you back into Damaskine. Let's go here. I'll take you to the edit. All right, so let's go to edit character, right? So here we go. So let's go under the wheel, and let's look at her skills. What are Damaskine's proficiencies? All right, hang on here. Boop, boop, boop. Boom, boom, boom. Sleight of hand, investigation, deception. Remember, Winter Court, person dealing with people. That's the kind of thing you want to deal with. So, Damaskine has that. Investigation, why? Because if she's going to be doing errands for the Winter Court, kind of as an advanced scout, looking at the lay of the land, you want her to have an investigative thing. And stealth, why? Because you want her to disappear on a dime head if she's in trouble. All fit, right? So pick skills that are going to fit with that NPC that make a whole lot of sense. Now, where did I take my expertise? Well, my expertise is in sleight of hand and deception. Why? Because if she's caught in an act of doing something that is a forgery, she can sleight of hand something quickly, and no one will know the better, right? And then I took a cunning action. I like those because, again, it comes with the class. There's more that's going to come with her. So what did I pick for the abilities? Well, I had different rolls, but I rolled high for charisma. Why? Everybody says, okay, let's do dexterity for our rogue. Okay, that's important, and I used 2 of the racial bonus to go there from the Reborn. But I said, she is going to be the gift of bull crapping. Sorry, caught myself before I almost said a word I shouldn't have, because these are kind of for everybody casts. So BSing. And look, the total score takes it to a 19. Now, all her other scores fairly average with 13s and 14s. She's quick for her sleight of hand, and her charisma fills in for all the other things, okay? So, in doing this, when you model these characters, these NPCs, take a look and say to yourself, what makes sense? And put it there. Now, descriptions. This is where I went and picked the background. I picked a haunted one. Why? Because remember I said the Eladrine was attached to her? Yeah. Melkner is there. She's haunted. Haunted by that experience. Haunted by that death on the battlefield that she can't quite remember. And haunted by this creature that can't stop talking in her head. So I took survival. Why? Because survival is something she would have learned out in the wilderness as a fae. So she's good at finding things and making sure you survive. But religion, why? Because she wanted to understand the peoples of the human realm, or the living realm, or the second world realm, as she calls it. She wanted to make sure she understood what motivated them. And languages, well, she took some different languages because of things she's run into. So I picked all those things, but I also picked a heart of darkness. Those who look into your eyes can see that you have faced unimaginable horror and that you are no stranger to darkness. Though they might fear you, commoners will extend every courtesy and do their utmost to help you, unless you have shown yourself to be a danger to them, and then they'll even take up arms to fight alongside you should you be facing your enemy alone. When they look in Damaskine's one eye that's living and the other one, they see the pain and the horror that she's been through. She is wounded, very wounded. And so they will come to her side in all situations. Even though she's a fae, she has been through horrors beyond imagining. And so, she's brought up with that. Now I picked my personality characteristics to go along with that. So again, try to pick things that make sense for your NPC, because that's what you're going to draw your players in with. These little aspects go a long way. So when you're doing this, pick the skills, pick the abilities, pick all the things to wrap around your concept. Okay? You're the DM. You can move the stats wherever the hell you want. Do it. Make it make sense. And you can leave a lot of openness. Don't give away a lot. Because when you do, then that's going to lose the mystique. Now, some of the things I'm sharing on here, some I'm not. Because the party might watch this video, but they're not going to understand everything behind Damaskine. I haven't filled it all in yet, but they will. And it's going to be different in each realm. A little bit different. Why is that? Because each one's coming across her at different points. Now, think about where your players will most likely encounter these NPCs. That's the next part. And make sure that their story takes them to a place they can encounter them and meshes in well with the other story. So wherever you introduce them, make sure they make sense in that setting. Okay? And are hopefully somebody that the party will repeatedly either go back to or invite along with the party. Now, if they invite along, take a look at all the classes of your players before you even go into settling on which NPCs will do what and offer what. You want to offer a lot of times an NPC that is not something the party has in class or skills. Because if you give them something that they already have, then it's kind of redundant. And they really don't need to invite them along. They could, but they don't need to. If you want them to invite them along, you have to give them a reason. Now, another side point real quick before I end this out. Think about the fact that the NPC will have some knowledge the party may need. But don't make them the reason the party always succeeds at stuff. You want the party to use their own skills. You don't want that NPC to overshadow the player characters. But you do want to throw in some appropriate points where either they roll their eyes, they kind of look at them, or they have a quirk that draws the party to them at maybe the most inopportune point of the adventure. There's a lot of fun you can have with the non-player characters, so keep that in mind when you do that. So keep that in mind when you do these things. Now, sometimes you may come up with an alternate source that will come up with an idea. Take those ideas and write them down. I do that. Again, the other day I had a situation where the Munchkie came up with an interesting non-player character idea. And I sat down and went, God, that is a good idea. And where will I put her? I've kind of worked her in to an aspect of 2 campaigns. We'll see how that character fleshes out, but she gave me a lot of backgrounds and great ideas. So I wrote it down. I didn't poo-poo that idea, because sometimes you'll get the ideas from the strangest places, and they're really cool, and they're really neat, and you do like the idea. So have a pen and paper ready, and take a few minutes and write these things down, because you never know where that could create a really interesting interaction and non-player character that the characters work with. So keep that in mind. All right, there aren't bad ideas. The last thing I would say is this, in closing down. Keep a notebook with a couple pages that you put and dedicate towards non-player characters. When you get ideas, when you get those creative sparks, start jotting them down. And start jotting down what campaign you think you would like to have them in setting-wise. And then when the time comes or the thing presents itself, then begin to do the fleshing out process that I've mentioned, where you sit down and really, and the story is the key with all non-player characters, their backstory, how they mesh in, what do they provide in that campaign, what resource do they give the players that the players don't normally have or will need time and again. Those are the kind of non-player characters you flesh out. I would say pick 2 to 5 a campaign that you do that with. The rest, other NPCs you're going to do, but you don't have to do a lot with them. And make sure you utilize the drama there when you build it up. All right, so we're about 33 minutes. I'm going to finish up here with saying, when you make those NPCs that interesting, and if the characters really become invested in them, then those NPCs truly become a vital part of the campaign. I'll give you, for instance, I had an NPC that popped up in a campaign, and this is one I didn't expect. But the character and the player, she fell for her. Yeah, her and her. She just was intrigued with the warmth, and it brought out the protective side of that player character. And she watched out and brought her home, which then piqued the interest of the NPC. Now, I made some rolls to make sure that this was a kind of a random attraction that happened. And it did. And so now I've got an NPC I got to flesh out. So keep in mind, you always want to keep a slot or 2 open for somebody that they come across that might be a 2D, 2-dimensional NPC that you didn't expect the party to hook up with in a good way, and they do. Keep that available in those ideas so you can mesh them together and give them a 3D character that comes to life. There's nothing more fulfilling than a player's character falling for an NPC and falling in love in a positive way and becoming invested. Because then if there's some things the party needs to do or a story they have to complete, that NPC becomes the motivator, to the emotional motivation for them to succeed. All right. So hopefully I've given you guys some ideas here with NPCs. I've got so many more, but I'm going to start this out as the 101. All right. Thanks again. This is Rick M. the GM. Please come back for more. Please come up with some ideas if you want to see me do them or talk about them, and let me know. All right. Thanks again, and we will talk to you on the next GM Tips.